Dungeons & Dragons is the all-time go-to tabletop RPG game that gained incredible popularity, so it is not a surprise that several other iterations of the game was made. Although they are not canon to the main lore of D&D, they are definitely a great way to introduce a few surprises to your players. Today I will tackle on one of these D&D 5e compatible settings, the Islands of Sina-Una. Set in the mythical lore of the Philippine Islands, you can expect new gods, races, classes, and especially stranger and fiercer monsters. One of the things that bothers me in a D&D game is when players are so used to fighting the same dragon or goblin that they basically know that monster's strengths and weaknesses. That is why I love running these compatible 5e books. The players never know what they are up against. It brings a new kind of excitement and mystery to the game. Not to mention that the Islands of Sina-Una is based on my country's mythical lore and animistic culture. And one of the lores that elders still believe in, even today, is the Aswang. Aswangs defy categorization and escape definition. They can be said to be a menagerie of monsters that include lycanthropes, vampires, ghouls, and even fiends. They have different strengths and uncommon weaknesses. Aswangs can be traced back when people committed the ultimate of taboos, defiling corpses or succumbing to cannibalism. Their dark deeds then transform them to grotesque monsters that are feared and hunted by their tribesmen. The Islands of Sina-Una gives you different kinds of Aswang that you can use against your players, and each one of them has their own special way to frighten and attack your adventurers. Aswangs are social outcasts who willfully perform the opposite of established social norms. They are the dark opposites of society, so if your village practices cleanliness, then they are plagued by an Aswang who is filthy. Or if your village is spiritual, then they are attacked by an Aswang who desecrates religious sites and speaks sacrilege. By performing deeds that are seen as a great taboo among the people, the Aswang would gain their unnatural abilities. It is also through their natural disposition to be the dark opposites that an Aswang can be identified. For you see, Aswangs are all shapeshifters who can blend with the crowd. So in your D&D game, players may suddenly notice in reflective surfaces that a particular villager's reflection would do the opposite of what is seen. He may raise his right hand, but the reflection would be him raising his opposite hand. Or when you look into the eyes of a villager that you are attempting to seduce, you may notice in her eyes that your image is upside down. Aswangs are wildly different from each other, but some are usually related by blood. If you think just because Aswangs are different from each other in terms of power or appearances, doesn't mean they don't protect and look out for each other. This is what makes hunting Aswangs dangerous. Even if you manage to kill a weak Aswang, there's a chance they are related to a stronger one. And these Aswang families will react in vengeance. Their variety makes them an unpredictable challenge to overcome. But they do have one thing in common. They all personify the taboo of cannibalism, and they will feed on humanoid victims, be it to drink their blood or feast on their entrails. Some may even prefer feasting on corpses. Be warned though, not all in the Aswang family are themselves Aswang, at least not yet. These are the family members awaiting for the ceremony to become an Aswang. The ceremony itself is as dark and grotesque as their very being. For you see, to make a new Aswang, a dying elder Aswang must regurgitate a cursed black egg. The eggs, known as dark hatchlings, must be consumed by the family member, and only then will transformation occur. It alters the Aswang, cursing them with unnatural hunger while making them forever youthful. Aswangs do have a very long lifespan, and making new Aswangs is not very common. If an elder Aswang regurgitates a dark hatchling, he not only transfers his powers to the new generation, but it will also mean the elder Aswang would be vulnerable to the ravages of time. As I mentioned before, many Aswangs have the ability to change their shape. The most common is lycanthropy, where they become dark and grotesque monsters. Some Aswangs can also use magic to shape change into their victims. This ability helps them hide into the crowd, but unlike the usual shapeshifters, they are not affected by the phases of the moon and are not weakened by silver. I believe that the reason for this is that in Philippine history, silver was not widely used until the arrival of the Spaniards. The only way to defeat the Aswang's unnatural resilience to weapons is by immersing them in salt. Hunters can rub salt in their weapons, but doing so as such would diminish the lifespan of the weapon. Instead, a better option is to use the weapons that are naturally drawn from the sea, such as stingray tails for whips or spears tipped with sharpened corals. Aswangs have a rich lore in Philippine mythology. Their variety gives an abundance of dark stories to tell. Even now, there would still be new stories of Aswangs popping out in different rural or urban areas of the Philippines. It is part of Philippine culture, and in fact, in Capiz, there is an Aswang festival. But that is all for the video today, and perhaps I may tackle on the individual Aswangs of Sina-Una themselves in the future. Have a nice day, and keep rolling those dice. If you like my content, then please like my video.